Pictures from the National Prayer Breakfast meeting at Safari Park Hotel this morning. Good morning, this is Citizen Extra and I'm Hussein Mohammed. Thank you for joining us. Arguably the briefest of moments of sanity in Kenyan politics, when politicians, or those in the National Assembly, hold the annual National Prayer Breakfast meeting and pleasantries exchanged in the political gap narrowed for the sake of the country. I will be talking to Stephen Leto, who's been following the proceedings there also this morning.
The list of 20 is not conclusive of all the people we believe fall short of the requirements of Chapter 6. But it includes individuals who have been identified for grand-scale corruption, unethical behavior, or conduct not becoming of a leader under our laws.
Calls by the civil society to have 20 politicians, including 2 former cabinet secretaries and 7 governors, barred from vying for office in the August polls. We look at the implications and the probability of such a move. In studio to discuss that, we'll have Stephen Mogaka, who's a constitutional lawyer, also the West Mugirango MP aspirant. Gabriel Muduma is a political analyst, and Regina Opondo, the executive director of CRECO, that is Consortium Constitution and Reform Education Consortium, among those supporting that idea. Also this morning,
there's no doubt we are going to say one Governor Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya is not fit to hold public office. We will not be the first to say this in the last few weeks.
Right, and the Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee today is meeting IEBC and EACC officials seeking to bar Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya from vying for governorship for snubbing Senate summons over audit queries. Will be going live in Parliament to follow the proceedings shortly, where Sam Gituku will be joining us. First, the country's leadership, as we told you, including leaders from across the political divide, government officials, religious leaders and members of the diplomatic corps, have just moments ago concluded the National Prayer Breakfast meeting at the Safari Park Hotel, the annual event that gives leaders the opportunity to reaffirm their commitment to God and dedicate the nation to divine protection. Stephen Leto now joins us live from Safari Park Hotel, where that event has just concluded. Leto, a strong call for unity ahead of the August polls and peace, of course.
Well, a very good morning to you, Hussein. There we are on a prayer mode here at the Safari Park Hotel, where President Uhuru Kenyatta, his deputy William Ruto, have just concluded an annual national prayer breakfast that is hosted by the National Assembly and the Senate, just to bring together members of the National Assembly, members of the Senate, members of the judiciary, as well as those of the executive led by the President himself, to come and review and, of course, engage the country into prayers. These are coming, of course, Hussein, at a time when the country is preparing for another general election on the 8th of August. Barely 74 days to go. Of course, the President and his deputy insisting that the country is ready or is set for a free, fair and transparent election in the August 8th polls, but at the same time insisting that, you know, politicians, as they go around trying to campaign for themselves across the country, to pay attention and to prioritize what the President is terming as peace and unity and harmony among Kenyans living all over the 47 counties. And of course, a lot are happening, also being told by the head of judiciary, that is Chief Justice Maraga, saying also the same sentiments. The chairman for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Eliud Wabukala, also echoing that, you know, the country requires a lot of prayers as it prepares for the August 8 polls. And so, Hussein, there are a lot of attendees who attended this particular forum today. Of course, members of the diplomatic corps, like you mentioned there, but most importantly, the hosts who are hosting this event today, that is members of the National Assembly. And quickly, I want to be joined in by the member of Kiminini, who is also the Deputy Minority Whip of the National Assembly, Dr. Chris Wamalwa. Just tell us, what do you think of today's National Prayer Breakfast that has just been concluded?
Indeed, today's prayer breakfast has come at the right time, particularly at the timing where we're almost going to the general election. And the theme of today was peace, love and unity, and the national anthem. So we must subscribe to the words of the national anthem. And at a time like this, when Kenyans are preparing for the general elections, it is indeed important that all the key players in the elections must be able to know whatever we do, we do not have any other country. People should not incite other people, but preach the message of peace, so that Kenyans can be able to decide who is going to be their leader. And more importantly, from the speakers, this issue of the message that was we have no other country to go to, and whoever is going to come to rule this country is going to be a Kenyan. So it is indeed important that Kenyans must be able to evaluate the leadership before they make any decision. As a member of the National Assembly, I'm so proud of this particular activity today, and we are calling up on all the peace-loving Kenyans. Whatever they are going to do during this electioneering period, they must preach peace, love and unity.
Of course, the president saying, and the deputy president also saying that both coalitions, that is the National Super Alliance and the Jubilee Party, are comprised of a national outlook. What do you take of those sentiments?
Yeah, absolutely. It's indeed true, and it's even provided for in the Constitution that whatever happens, you must give a face of Kenya. So on the Jubilee side, even when it comes to the government side, that face of Kenya is very, very critical. So this is also the same message of unity, and whatever we're going to do, we must embrace nationhood.
Well, thank you. That is Deputy Minority Leader in the National Assembly, Chris Wamalwa. Also, just giving us an overview of what it was been today at the National Prayer Breakfast. And of course, again, we are joined by the chairman of all the deputy governors in the country, of course, representing the county assemblies, rather, Bwana Osoi. Representing the county assemblies, what message could you be having to the counties, particularly ahead of the next general election?
This prayer breakfast captures the moment. County assemblies across the republic are part of the governance system that would be looking at a peaceful country where we will not be divided on political lines or faith or whatever it is. There will be peace and unity across the country during the electioneering period.
What do you take of the president's sentiments, especially going towards the next general election, of bringing the country together, as well as, you know, both sides of the coalition having a national outlook?
The president extended an olive branch, and his speech was quite reconciliatory and asking Kenyans to behave Kenyans, because many years from now, Kenya as a country will still be here after many of us are gone. So I am very happy that the president has called upon everyone, and his speech was quite apolitical this time, calling every Kenyan to behave and be Kenyans that we are.
Well, we haven't seen much of governors attend this forum. Coming from the county assemblies, what do you have to say? We expected, of course, the just outgoing Council of Governors Chair Peter Munya to attend, but he was nowhere to be seen.
I am aware that the organizing committee of the National Prayer Breakfast invited counties, all the governors and deputy governors, speakers and their deputies, leaders of majority and minority parties, and so I wouldn't be sure why the governors are not here, but I am aware that assemblies are well represented in this function.
Well, thank you very much, Bwana Osoi. Also, we have the Member of Parliament for Chuka Igamangombe joining us. Just karibu sana. Thank you for speaking to Citizen TV. What is your take on today's National Prayer Breakfast hosted by the President, and the message that the President shared to the nation?
First of all, I want to really appreciate and thank most of the leaders who made it here today. You realize that we have very few members of parliament, very few senators, because it's a campaign time, and I'm happy for those who made time to come and be with the Kenyans to pray for the nation, and especially the president for having come all the way from Mombasa. I'm sure you just seen a few minutes ago his plane taking off from here. He didn't have time to go back to State House and take off from here. From there, he took off from here for Mombasa, and therefore to have come from Mombasa here just one night to come and have the prayers, it means it's very important to him and for Kenyans. The message that the President had today, and most of the leaders who spoke, it was not partisan. It was all about Kenyans. It's not about the winning of the coalition. It's about the winning for the Kenyan person. But allow me to register my disappointment. Even though we prayed and we've said we will walk the talk, it is important to mention as it is that I am disappointed that I never saw the NASA coalition leaders being in this meeting. This meeting was not about Jubilee, it was not about any other political outfit, it is about prayer for Kenyans. And therefore, wherever they are, and I'm hoping they will be able to find time to pray with the Kenyans, not just now, but even next time, so that we can express our concern for having a Kenya that is not divided at this time of elections and even in the times to come. Yes.
Well, thank you. That is the Member of Parliament for Chuka Egamangombe sharing his thoughts, of course, raising a concern that the National Super Alliance leaders led by Raila Odinga, who is the presidential candidate for the coalition, his running mate, who is also the Wiper Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, and also other principals did not attend this particular forum, raising eyebrows and, of course, their intention, or rather their commitment in having a peaceful country ahead of the next general election. And so, Hussein, as you can see from the background, just delegates who had attended this particular prayer breakfast, just having a tete-a-tete to find out, or just to share sentiments and also to review what transpired here. Of course, scriptures were read to the congregation, the Qurans, and also just bringing into the congregation that gathered here the importance of living together as a country, as a nation. Of course, we had representatives from Tanzania. We had the National Assembly, or the Parliament of Tanzania. The Speaker was here, accompanied by Member of Parliament for Zanzibar and two others in this particular breakfast. And so that the President also saying that they are ready as a country to continue living with their neighbors, that is Tanzania, Uganda, and all that. And so going to the next general election also, and finally saying the President has assured the country that there will be adequate security just to ensure that everything will be running smoothly in a bid to have a free, fair and transparent election in the August 8th polls. Remember, only 74 days to go, and also saying, most importantly, official campaigns kicking off this Sunday, that is on the 28th of May, expected now official campaign to continue. And Hussein, from this point, the President and his team has left for Kwale County for campaigns that kicked off yesterday in parts of Kilifi. And so the entourage of the President will be touching down in Kwale to continue with President Uhuru Kenyatta's itinerary of the coastal region, what is being now seen as a coastal charm offensive of the Jubilee Party in the run-up to the next general election. And of course, you know, Hussein, the other side of the coalition, that is the NASA team, is in Baringo County, that painting up you a picture of how busy both sides are, how a busy schedule they are having today. And so Hussein will be able to keep you up to speed on what will be transpiring across the day, and also a conclusive coverage of this national breakfast that has just been concluded here at the Safari Park Hotel along the Thika Superhighway. Hussein.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen Eto, joining us live from Safari Park Hotel, as he says, at the conclusion of the National Prayer Breakfast meeting. Now, civil society organizations now want 20 politicians, including 2 former cabinet secretaries and 7 governors, barred from vying for office in the August polls over integrity questions. The politicians include governors and MPs who have been investigated over corruption allegations and questionable academic papers. In studio now, first, okay, let's take a look at some of these politicians. Dr. Evans Kidero, there you can see, is the current governor in Nairobi. Procurement questions of 4.6 billion shillings among the issues is being investigated on. Ken Lusaka, governor of Bungoma County. We also have Hassan Joho over questionable academic papers. Okoth Obado is the current governor, Migori County, Alfred Mutua, governor, Machakos, Mwangi area, governor, Muranga, Cyprian Awiti, governor, Homa Bay County. Mike Sonko, vying for governor in Nairobi. Amre Guru, vying for governor, former cabinet secretary in Kirinyaga County. Moses Kuria, Katundu South, Alfred Keter, vying for MP Nandi Hills. Oscar Sudi Kapseret, Ferdinand Wetitu, vying for governor in Kiambu County. Right, those are just some of the names there that civil society organizations want barred from vying in the elections. In studio now, Regina Opondo, Executive Secretary, CRECO, that is Constitution and Reform Education Consortium, supporting that move by civil society organizations. Stephen Mogaka, constitutional lawyer, also an aspirant for West Mugirango constituency. and Gabriel Muthuma is a political analyst. Thank you so much all for making time for us. And I'll start with you, Gabriel. First, what do you make of that move by civil society organizations?
Thank you, Hussein, and good morning.
Fine.
Number one, I don't think civil society in Kenya is alone to itself. So it is quite panicky on their end when they come and give us a list of names, knowing fully well that the people they want to subject, well, I can understand on the CS side of things, but when people have been elected by the public that they say they are representing, it's actually a catch-22 for them. And so to speak, it brings out a picture of nothing more than what you would call witch hunt. Now, I don't want to say that I would be holding any brief for any person who's actually mentioned in that list, but I think it's also time bad. And I don't know, Hussein, why people like bringing in or throwing the spanner into the works when we are nearing elections. I mean, if civil society knew all about this, they had all the time in the world to had actually invoked all the what you'd call the independent institutions, and to ensure that these people don't move on from being elected to going through the primaries. And this is what we were talking about the other day. I mean, they've been there all along. The other day I was here with a good friend of mine, Hugh Tony Rongo, and I was just telling him the very same thing. And I'm glad to see him holding a placard of where he says we've red carded these people, and in the public, in the public interest. Yeah. But then again, Hussein, ask yourself, some of these people, and if I was just to sideline somebody, we've had governors who've actually been taken to court. You remember there was a time Senator Mike Sonko actually stepped down for him to be investigated. They investigated him and actually reinstated him back to his position. Somebody like Anne Waiguru, I mean, she went through the whole PAC charade, and 1.5 years. To me, if you ask me from where I'm seated, I can just tell you, PAC have just realized they failed. All along, from giving us some element of credibility. 1.5 years later, they bring a verdict. The people who've actually been voted out by the public, they are bringing a verdict when it's too late. Again, elements of witch hunting suffice. The other thing everybody is asking since yesterday, who is civil society representing in this case? Because if they were serious at all, we would have seen this come a long time ago. So just to nullify the whole process, I think there's an interest behind what they are acting this morning.
Let me get Regina's comments on this. But there's an interest behind this. That's what Muthuma is saying. Somebody is behind this. It's not for the sake of Kenyans. That's what you're saying, Muthuma.
Totally.
Okay. Regina?
And I will agree that there is an interest behind it, but the interest is not a somebody. I think it is the many bodies and the many people. Civil society, I think, has consistently worked on the issue of accountability and integrity. So this is not the first time we're getting a report of such a kind, except that this one is more comprehensive than previous efforts. In 2007, you had the movement of political accountability, which tried to pin down politicians to the idea of committing to certain ideals and principles around integrity and accountability, and holding them as they get elected and as they run through the course of the 5 years, and keep coming back to citizens. And that didn't manage to work. I think at that point we only got about 2 or so members of parliament that signed on, and those 2 were actually consistent in terms of their performance in what they committed that they would do for the citizens. One of them, I think, was the Honorable Shakil Shabir from Kisumu. In 2013, prior to the 2013 elections, there was also work that happened not at national level but at county levels. So I have instances from Nakuru, I have instances from Kisumu, from Makueni, where citizens group working with civil society organized themselves and did betting at that level of local leaders. So some MCAs got through, some did not get through, because of that kind of work. So increasingly we've also gotten frustrated because we have this lofty idea in the Constitution, captured in the preamble, of what we want as Kenyans. And in those lofty ideas, the rest of the Constitution then tries to deliver on those lofty aspirations and dreams that we have as Kenyans. And then we put laws and policies in place and institutions like EACC to give us that. But something seems to be falling. So if we have the great laws, we have the great institutions, then the problem is maybe the people in the institutions. And maybe we need to start working on the people in the institutions, and that does not also exclude ourselves. So when the law fails us, when the institutions fail us, then what recourse do citizens have? That's what we ask ourselves. Right. And I think this is a good move that has been done by the Integrity Alliance, because we know other processes are taking place. So let EACC continue, but let them do their work. We don't want 5 years down the line, as we've seen recently with academic qualifications, that something fell through. Let them do their job. Enforcement is where we're failing, and enforcement is not in the law, it's not in the institutions, it is in the people behind all of those. We laud the move. We hope it will be taken forward. I think they said that the list is not comprehensive.
Yeah.
There's about 1,500 aspirants that have been mentioned, and we don't know at what level their processes are, whether they're in court, whether they're in EACC, who they are with.
But either way, you're talking about enforcement. Either way, you'd want this enforced before these elections, isn't it?
That would be the ideal. But we know that
do you think that's going to work, and how?
Sorry?
How do you think that is going to work? Do you think it's going to work, and how?
I don't think we'll get all of them. I think some will slip through the cracks. I think it's possible to get some. What perhaps maybe our learned friends could advise us on, and at least one of them is sitting next to me, is how we push the evidentiary process.
Legally,
that's where we
what
get
happens?
stuck. The legal justice process is where we get stuck. But on the moral and ethical issue, I think we are clear. There, I don't think we have disagreement.
Mogaka, can this work? Can this really happen legally?
Technically, it may not, because it is dealing with moral issues. It is dealing with people's conduct. People's conduct is only regulated in Articles, Chapter 6 of our Constitution, which, you know, I call it the religious aspect of the Constitution, because it really touches on the moral issues. What the civil society is doing is commendable. And it is representative of the frustrations Kenyans have at the institution of failure in trying to police the people who are given public office, which is defined in the Constitution as a trust. And where there has been such a dramatic breach of trust and abuse of office, the law with its strictures may not be able to net these people, because the standard of proof to convict somebody associated with corruption, the standard of proof is fairly high. And therefore, I think what civil society is doing is trying to express the ideals that we ought to have aspired for as a nation. But sadly, I think the problem comes down to the citizenry, because what level of tolerance does an ordinary citizen have to people who misconduct themselves in office? And really, this is where the problem is, because the law may not catch and convict an individual, but the court of public opinion does pass verdicts of guilty all the time, and yet these people brandish money all the way to elective office. I sympathize with civil society, but I say that from a high moral ground, they are saying the right thing. I don't know what IEBC could do at this point in time, because the institutions that were put in place to deal with the sifting of these individuals have already cleared them. And IEBC is the last man to the goal, and really they have nothing to do, only to look at the papers that have been given by the police service, saying people have certificates of good conduct from EACC, they have a clean bill of corruption, and that's it. So I really sympathize with Kenyans and the civil society. They are the voice of reason, but that is as much as we can go.
How does this weigh in on the doctrine of innocence until proven guilty?
True.
What happens? I mean,
that is where the protection of these suspects are, because what the civil society is telling the world is that these people are suspected to have misconducted themselves. But Article 50 of our Constitution ring-fences the citizen's right to conviction, because it requires that every citizen suspected of any offense is presumed innocent until proven guilty. They have got to be subjected to a due process. They have got to be given a fair chance to defend themselves before an independent tribunal, and to go through all those and get an individual guilty, particularly where witnesses are easily compromised or killed. It becomes a very serious challenge in this country to really get somebody convicted. And therefore, perhaps what the civil society is doing is good enough. Make noise around these people and say, you may go through to the ballot and get elected. You may not listen to the voice of reason, but we have told you that you don't deserve to hold public office. And really, that is as much as the civil society can go.
The question is whether that will influence the electorate in any way. Muduma, you have outrightly disagreed with how the civil society has conducted itself over this matter. both Regina and Mogaka sympathize with what the civil society has done and says it represents what the people want done, especially if you look at the moral issues. Are you saying, with the problems that we have in this country, regardless of the people that have been named, that it's not high time that IEBC and other institutions bar some people, and we see that done publicly, so that we see some change in terms of Kenya's leadership?
And Hussein, a very great question. One thing I'll agree with Mogaka to a large extent is the very fact that there is that particular element of law that says, you know, you are innocent until proven guilty. Now, if civil society are to stay on their line of ensuring that we are talking about matters integrity, and then jump on the bandwagon where you say, you know, we are going to have these people bad, and I began by telling you they are not a law unto themselves. You are looking at institutions which are mandated by Parliament and by law and by our Constitution to ensure that the justice mechanism is followed to the core. And if you look at what IEBC represents, if you look at what some of our political parties represent, if you look at some of the what we call independent institutions represent, you are looking at a facility whereby somebody or an individual exhausts all the avenues that the law provides. So civil society, on my case, they know all these things, and this is where probably I'm disagreeing with Regina. She has just told us that she does not think they have the onus of time for them to be able to catch these people, and again she accepts that some may fall in the cracks. So what I'm trying to say, Hussein, is civil society knows. They know very well that this may actually not go anywhere, because if I was to advise them, and I keep telling you there is so much information, Regina, but very little knowledge, I would have started with educating the public, because the very public you represent is the same public that went out and voted overwhelmingly for people like Anne Waiguru. It's the same that went and overwhelmingly voted for people like Ali Hassan Joho. Same people voted for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Deputy William Ruto when they knew very well that these people had cases to answer. So if I was to bring a starting point, I would start by educating the masses. It seems that's where the problem is. But again, the time that you people are coming out, civil society, is not only suspect, but borders on witch hunt.
They should have done it earlier?
A long time ago.
So that if there's a process or if there are legal processes, they would have been exhausted by now.
Exactly. And you saw what you saw like the good case. I mean, invoke even political parties. You saw the issue of Mainajenga. You know, actually Jubilee did not actually want to deal with him. And I think, Regina, you could be right, but your starting point is suspect. I wish you'd have gone to places like the parties. You know, invoke you know, the people. Let the public understand what you're trying to do. Because like Mogaka is saying, there is the element of public opinion. Use that avenue. But again, if you come to the law factor, there is, I mean, this country, I mean, orbits around the axis of law and order. You cannot come and say you're going to lynch people, because that's what it is. You are subjecting people to a morality scale, and then you use the public to lynch them. It does not work in a country like Kenya. We have a constitution and the laws.
Regina?
I actually disagree with him that we're coming in now. I think because civil society doesn't always shout, doesn't always scream about what they are doing, it is assumed that nothing is happening. But stuff has been happening, I think, over the years. You've had the Conference of Catholic Bishops speaking about their frustrations around the issues of corruption, around certain characters being forward for positions, and their disappointment. You've had civil society make several statements, I think, over the last, it's almost 15 years, it's not even the last 5 years, on these issues. Including going to court, participating in public interest litigation. You had the case against Matemu. So there is consistent, I think, work going on around some of these issues. Let me also mention the
But in terms of timing,
yes,
in as far as this electoral cycle is concerned, going ahead to say this number of people should be barred in petitioning IEBC, what Buduma is saying is, you already know, the civil society already knows that there are problems in the law. And that if this happens, and if IEBC, for example, was to heed to what the civil society is saying, most of these people will still go to court, and then we'll start a court process that will overrun the electoral August election period. So why wasn't this done earlier? To actually go and petition IEBC and other institutions to say these people should not vie.
Correct.
No, petitions have been done to IEBC before, but this one has been made public. But because the timing is too late, should we not do it? If you have consistently been working on something, Do you stop because now we're too close to the elections? You continue to work on it even through the elections, as the elections happen, because it's something that you hold dear and it's something that you're passionate about. Let's ask ourselves what is at stake, because the report covers 3 particular areas. It covers people who've been accused or have been mentioned around issues of corruption. It talks about people who've been accused or mentioned around issues of incitement and division, so national cohesion, and today we were praying about cohesion. And it talks about people with dodgy qualifications. And the dodgy qualifications, we know that is even a failure at the institutional level.
Yeah.
What is the worst case scenario when these 3 things happen? If you talk about corruption, the worst case scenario is that people die, because people don't get medicine, people don't get food, people die on the roads. That's the worst case scenario. People die. So when you talk about the timing is too late, it's never too late to continuously raise these issues. When you talk about the second issue around people who've been mentioned around incitement, and we know the challenges we've had in the court system, including some people being cleared even where there are recordings, and doesn't mean we now keep quiet because the law has pronounced them clear. We have to keep pushing and pushing the bar, raising the bar. If we have set the bar so low that people can still get through even with the legal process, it doesn't mean we stop there. We continue raising the bar and pushing for the bar to be raised.
Okay.
So in the issue of incitement, the worst case scenario is the same. People die. The more vulnerable people continue to get marginalized. Women, children, everybody suffers twice, 3 times, 4 times more.
Hussein, allow me to chip in on what Regina is saying. Regina, I don't want you to get me wrong. I am not saying what you're doing is not beneficial. What I am questioning is that civil society, you seem to know where the problem is. I'm talking about a judicial machinery which starts from the policeman out there, comes all the way through the justice system, the DCI, you cover everybody.
That is what I've said, Muduma, over the years.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's where the failure is. And I equate your situation with me going to the river with a bucket that I know has holes and trying to bring water all the way up to my homestead.
So what do you do?
I will not find water. That's what starting point is wrong. You know where the problem is. Fix it. I told you there's a knowledge that demands responsibility. If you know where the issues are, and I believe you know a civil society, are there issues in the EACC? Fix them. Look for a way to fix them. I mean, invoke the public. Are there issues with the DCI? Get the public support. Are there issues with the way we do our investigation? Get support. Well, are there issues with Parliament? Regina, I'm talking about.
Regina has said it. I mean, we've been covering these stories, and we have seen civil society make noise about all those institutions that you've been talking about. You're talking about. If you're saying that it's a wrong start, where they started is wrong, the other process that you're talking about is what has been failing over the years. And in fact, that's why this is not important. I'm not saying just go out and say it publicly. We don't want ABCD vying. You have registered your concerns, whether the institutions.
That's not important, Hussein, because people will continue going scot-free. And you see, you're talking about, I've given you a very good example, like that of Anne Waiguru, and even PAC passing the recommendations. All they've done, again, is passing recommendations. But find out, Anne Waiguru has already gone through what they called a lifestyle audit. She went through that. She's been investigated back to back. She came to the EACC, provided her own defense and said, you need to look at this. I am providing it to you. Nobody has bothered. So 1 year removed from that, when that case took over, you find EACC, not EACC, or find the PAC, the parliamentary PAC, are bringing out a verdict for her to be investigated. The same institutions that looked into her issues have been again invited to go back and do the same. That is why it is an exercise in futility. And that's why I'm saying, if Regina, if civil society were at all serious, because now to me they look like they are representing, you know, interests that are looking to witch hunt. That's why I'm saying they should be candid in what they are trying to do. And if it's something that if it's a serious verdict that they want to produce, they must remain consistent. And consistent here, Regina, look at it closely, because I believe that is where you're not. That's where your imbalance actually is coming in.
Regina,
before Regina takes it, I think I want to agree with what Regina is saying, to the extent that civil society represents the voice where our law fails us and institutions fail us, because we are dealing with situations where we have been seeking to give justice according to the law. And justice according to the law is very rigid.
Yes.
But that does not mean that anybody who is acquitted by the law and our legal regime as it is now, that does not mean they are morally upright to hold public office.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look at the problem with our law is that we have two types of laws. One that applies to public officers, which requires that when you are suspected to have committed a crime, you are interdicted once you are charged before a court of law. But we seem to be having some insulation where certain people are calling themselves state officers. And when you call somebody a state officer, these are the guys who enjoy certain immunities that when they are charged in a court of law, whether parliamentarians, whether senators, whether governors, these guys enjoy immunity because they have a protection in law that they can only be convicted and sentenced to a sentence of not less than 6 months. That is the moment they leave office. So I think the problem is there within the law because the way the law has been founded creates this.
And so sometimes you're saying it's so rigid. Sometimes
it is very rigid.
Look at legal matters here, but moral matters.
But when we are dealing with moral matters,
moral matters has the problem. I mean, sometimes moral matters can be the subject of witch hunt, as Muduma says, and we have seen that as well.
Agreed. But we're saying where we have a situation where colossal sums of public money under your watch has disappeared, is that not reason enough to step aside until we know what happened with that money? I mean, where you have a situation like Governor Oparanya, who has been summoned to the Senate to come and answer over the money that he has been given to take care of, and he refuses to come, is that not enough reason to stop him from, continuing to preside over that county? I mean, really, these are the serious moral issues that this country should be dealing with, and I do blame the civil society because I think these petitions should have been lodged with political parties which have cleared these people. In fact, mass action should have been called as soon as these people were cleared and given tickets, and I would have been a happier man if I had civil society leading a movement saying any political party that clears people who are known publicly to have abused office and lost public money, I mean, such political parties should not be voted in. I think also as citizens, we are also failing because when you look at how the primaries were conducted and some of these suspects were cleared overwhelmingly, then you look at Kenyans and wonder, are we a serious country with serious citizens? I doubt.
All right, we have to leave this discussion there for now. Thank you so much, Regina Opondo, Executive Secretary of CRECO. Stephen Mugaga is a West Mugirango MP aspirant, also a constitutional lawyer, and Gabriel Muduma, political analyst. Thank you so much for making time for us. This morning, we're taking a short break now on Citizen Extra. Still ahead, what Mugaga was talking about, Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee meeting IBC and EACC officials in its push to have Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya barred from vying for governorship for snubbing summons by that committee. Sam Gituku is live. They will be crossing there shortly. We'll also be showing you. We'll also be crossing over to Mombasa, where Governor Joho has just unveiled his running mate. Stay tuned.